If you want to really challenge yourself and test yourself and have a life of purpose and have a life of meaning and do something extraordinary, what better vehicle?
The reality is that runway and cash does kill businesses.
Startup is like a canvas onto which you can express yourself.
When we first started, I saw a business in America raised $500,000 for a similar idea at the idea stage. And I was just like, we can raise $500,000.
I see companies on like the S&P 500 or whatever it was over a prolonged period.
Yeah.
They looked at all the criteria of what was the most successful. Was it the management team? Was it strategy? And the number one thing that trumped everything.
We are back with another episode of the Do As I Say, Not As I Did podcast. Every week we answer real and sometimes insane Reddit questions about how to grow your startup. And today we're joined by Marc Washbourne, the founder and CEO of ReadyTech, a company he scaled from a small software development house to a $350 million market cap. Marc originally came to Australia as a backpacker for 6 months. 25 years later, he's still here. He's still building one of Australia's top public companies. So let's jump into it. Welcome, mate. The first thing I want to know is, what was the first thing you bought after ReadyTech went public? Because surely that's like a big moment. You're like, I've made it to some extent, and you allowed yourself something.
Well, yeah, no, I've been asked that a couple of times actually, and I always thought that after we listed and there's an amazing day, like you have a ceremony, and you ring the bell at the ASX and something, like life would change somehow. And so I woke up the next day and patted myself down and just went straight back to the office. It was pretty much the same as it was before. Very genuinely, I don't think I did. I maybe I should have. I probably bought like a really nice new jacket or something. But I didn't actually.
No jet ski.
No jet ski. No like really fast car or anything like that. Okay. It's a bit boring.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I might have bought a new driver actually. I think I did. I bought a new golf driver. That's
right. Okay.
Yeah.
What a treat.
Upgraded my driver.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's jump into the Reddit questions today. So, first one I want to ask is the idea of being an entrepreneur over-glorified? Is the satisfaction really worth it? Or is the idea of being an entrepreneur glorified? Or is it actually the best position to be in? And this is from Dara Escabara.
That's a really interesting question, actually, isn't it? I think that at times in the media, and the stories that get told are often, they're the unicorn stories, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're called unicorns for a reason.
Yeah.
They're really rare. And so, we kind of focus a lot of our attention on these incredibly successful businesses, and that seems extremely glamorous and whatever else. But probably the reality is, for the vast majority, it's tough and it can be a grind, and it's really hard work, and you need enormous amount of tenacity to get through all the highs and lows. But then I think I would also say that if you want to really challenge yourself and test yourself and have a life of purpose and have a life of meaning and do something extraordinary, what better vehicle than to start a company and build a company? I think it's one of the most incredible things you can do if you're passionate and have ambition and want to do things and change things. I think at times it's probably over glamorized, but also I think it's one of the best things you can do with your life. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's super over glamorized, glorified or whatever. It's like, I think the media makes it out to be like, work for yourself, you're a hero, and you get rich and work whenever you want. And I think being a startup, probably most of the time it's terrible. Like running a startup, but I think there are huge highs, and the highs, I've never done it, but you just mentioned before we started, we were recording, ringing the bell at the ASX, what a high that is, or you make that sale that you've been working on for ages, or you hire a person you never thought would join your team. There are these individual moments of running a business which are so nothing can compare to them, in a job, and I love those, but it's so fucking hard, and shit goes wrong non-stop, and all you're doing is dealing with fires, and it's not work 9 to 5, go home and chill out. It's it's work all the time on the worst stuff. So I think it's definitely over glorified, but I think for the right people it's worth it. And I used to think everyone should be an entrepreneur, but I don't. I think people should be more entrepreneurial, but the actual journey to be an entrepreneur, in my mind, isn't what will make most people happy, right? Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to prove something to themselves, and that punishment and grind and journey is like this cathartic, I don't know, expression to find themselves or make themselves better or something. And for those people, like, do it, but it's not glorious. Like along the way, it's really hard.
Yeah, I think that I heard Sam Prince speak recently, and I met Sam Prince. He has Sombrero. He described it as one of the great ways you can challenge, if you like to be challenged, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of maybe it's not for everyone. I actually believe that too. I used to think that anyone could be a founder, anyone should be a founder, and I think it's probably for a more limited number of people. But he said that if a startup is like a canvas onto which you can express yourself.
I love that.
And that really, really stuck with me, right? Like what you believe in, your values. If you want to, as I say, express that, but also really, really challenge yourself and push yourself and find out what you're capable of and bring in the best out in others. It's an incredible vehicle, but you're going to have lots and lots of really bad days and highs. And I think that in order to get through that, I think what I've learned is that you actually need a bit of equanimity, right? Is that you don't ride the highs too high and the lows too low. Keep it more balanced. And it helps you because obviously it can be a long journey, right?
Yeah.
I think that often, again, the media portrays that it all happens really, really fast. For the vast majority, it's not that, right? Like it's not. We made it in 2 years. Often it's 5-10 years before companies really make it. So so it was what a good starting question.
Yeah, thanks. I'd actually argue that no one makes it quickly. Like the fastest I've ever heard of someone making it was a previous guest we had, and he started and sold his business for a lot of money in 1.5 years. And like that is a crazy timeline.
Yeah.
But he had started like 10 businesses over the 20 years before that. And so he just ate shit for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And then he got the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe that point was fast, but he didn't get there just by walking into it.
Incredibly rare. I've seen it a couple of times where someone saw an opportunity with a very, very clear exit. Like if I build this really fast, this strategic buyer is going to come along and buy this, probably because they worked there or they worked in the industry. That happens too, but geez, it's really rare that it happens fast.
Yeah, and if you think about getting into startups, I wouldn't think about it as a quick journey or get rich quick.
That's right. And startup investing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to start to put money in as an angel or whatever else, right? Like you're not getting a return in 3 years. Often it's actually a 10-year horizon, much longer than people think when they might start startup investing too.
And for most of them, a never horizon.
Yeah, maybe never.
Awesome, man. I love that. Well, let's try and bring that one to a close. So, is the idea of being an entrepreneur over glorified? I think in general, yes. Like especially in the media, it seems amazing, and you're the hero, and you get rich, and it's super fun, and you have these great fun Google offices. But the reality is that it's a hard slog, and for some people, that is the glory, right? And it's worth doing. But for the vast majority, I think it's super. It looks way better than what the reality is that you're going to experience.
That's very fair.
All right. Well.
We agree on that one.
We do agree.
Okay, let's hope we're not going to agree on everything.
Okay. All right. This next question is called, how can I not fuck this up? Everything should be fine, but I'm exhausted. We're building an app and we're a few days from launch. Waitlist is several hundred people, and some of them even bought early access. Despite this, it has been very exhausting to raise even an angel round, and we're still not even finished. I'm in Europe, so everybody wants to see traction first, like huge traction. Most only want to invest in B2B. We could easily pivot to B2B, but I believe we will miss a huge chance. We're currently bootstrapped and runway is running short. A lot hangs on the launch and I'm tired. I'm starting to take no's from investors personally in the sense that I'm not good enough. And now I have to prepare some marketing material, TikTok sketches, and I'm completely empty and paralyzed. What do I do? This is from I Am Unique 6435.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you do in the moment to advise that person, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind is that when it's sort of getting to that point where it's become so pivotal moment, right? Like it's either it's going to happen or it's not.
Yeah.
that I think I've seen at times that founders and business owners, they kind of get a lot of sort of confirmation bias or sunk cost bias, is that I absolutely have to keep going, and because I've already invested this much, and at the end of the day it's either going to work or it's not going to work. So I'd say keep pushing, go for the Hail Mary, and if that happens, then you'll get through to the other side. But sometimes maybe it's not going to work out and you've got to cut your losses, and just push through to that point where you either know, but you've got to look yourself in the mirror sometimes and say, maybe this thing's not going to work. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, it's hard, right? So he's in this interesting position where he's about to launch, so that's awesome. Like the fact that someone's been able to get to the point where they've built something and it's close to going out, they've got a wait list. That's pretty unique, right? A lot of people never get to that, and some people have paid. Like that's amazing. Like so, first of all, it's just pats on the back there. That is a unique thing, right? Like most people talk about startups and they never do shit. So you've gotten so much further than most other people. Then he's talking about he's got not a lot of runway left. That I understand. That is fucking stressful. And there's no easy piece of advice there of just don't think about it. Right? There's just the reality is there that runway and cash does kill businesses. So you just have to get this launch out there. And then the other kind of challenge he's dealing with is that he's trying to raise investment and he can't. And I guess I might just focus on that one, which is he says he's in Europe and the raising market there is tough, and I think we see a similar, if not even more barren landscape here in Australia. But the reality is, I think these days that you just can't really raise without traction, even in America. So I think some people get these wrong expectations in a startup, and if you think if we get to launch and we can raise money and then you can't, that's almost what kills the business. So if you think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, and then but because it was never going to happen, but you had the wrong expectations, I think that's tough. Really tough to deal with that. And I've been a sucker for that before. When we first started, I saw a business in America raised $500,000 for a similar idea at the idea stage, and I was just we can raise $500,000. We couldn't. We had to get a lot of revenue before we could raise. And but it turns out that guy raised from his dad, and all power to him, right? He's got the right network, but it wasn't just an idea. It was relationships and community. So I would just say to this person, I'm unique. Kind of forget about raising. You can't raise and launch and market and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe the only way here is that it's got to be family or friends, I would imagine, at that stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those situations happen all the time, right? I've been around startups that just got to the point where they just they ran out of cash.
Yeah.
They're difficult conversations as well, right? Because you're talking about relationships and whatever else. That's generally the way that I've seen people get through those sticky spots.
True.
Otherwise, what else you got to, the other option is that you've got to try to manage your costs better.
Yeah.
Cut costs. I've seen situations where you've had to ask, your team to, reduce salary and all those sort of things. The only other way to lengthen runway, is just to try and do everything you can for the cost base and try to get the other side. It's a tough spot.
It's a good point. So I guess if I was to boil it down a bit, you're on the cusp of a launch where you're going to get a lot of information, right? Whether or not this has the legs that you think it does. And you've got some pretty promising early traction to show that it might, but you are running out of money and you're tired. And I guess the only thing that you can do in this situation is do whatever you can, and you have to get to the launch. First of all, take a day off as well. Take a day off and have a breather because you're so tired, but get to that launch and let the market tell you if it's worth continuing. So if you can do that just with the money you have, do that, right? Get more information. If you need to cut down costs, cut down costs. If you need, if you have the luxury of family and friends, go to family and friends. But I guess it's just do whatever you can. You've come so far.
You've come so far. That was totally the point. Yeah. I think I went right to the end before we sort of went through the journey.
No, it's good. It's good.
Right?
I was like just trying to work it out myself. So
yeah, and we got to the right spot. But
Yeah.
I think that you've come so far, you've just got to find a way to get that
Yeah.
launch. Because if you don't, you'll probably always wonder, right?
Yeah.
Don't die wondering.
Yeah.
Is the best advice. And it will work or it won't work. But yeah, you've come so far, you've got to find a way to give it a shot. I've generally found that there's always a way.
Yeah.
You're right though, when you are tired and exhausted, then also the emotions come in.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a way to be your best self in that moment.
Yeah.
Then you can make the best decisions. So you've got to be kind to yourself in those moments as well, right?
My co-friend and I, Ben, who you know actually,
Yeah.
we used to always call ourselves cockroaches, and because there's always different levels of startups, like compared to where we want to go, when we're not even nearly successful, but compared to where we've been, we're wildly successful. People would ask us like, how'd you do it? How do you have this level of success? And we'd be like, we just didn't die.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The whole thing is,
Yeah.
we just continued to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nothing special in that. Just the grinding it out and working out how to not die. The different corners.
Yeah. Cockroaches and unicorns.
Yeah, exactly. I love that expression, don't die wondering. I think about that a lot, right? So, like, should we do this, this part of the business, or should we do the business in the first place? Like, I remember when we first quit our jobs to do it full time. Yeah. We just thought like, fuck, what would we look back and think of this if we didn't do it? If we stayed in our, safe engineering jobs, and all these years later, like, thank God we did it. But if it didn't work out, it could have just gone back. So.
What would you say to yourself if you had your time to talk to the person that was making that decision?
Just fucking have a go.
Yeah.
Like, I love the expression roll the dice. Like, just see where it lands. But if I had one piece of advice to give to myself at the beginning, which I actually love to see what yours is, it would just be, just go crazy in how much you focus on building relationships with people. Because I'm not a technical co-founder. I know you were, but like, I didn't build, so like all I did is build relationships, and like, those relationships are what turn into investments or clients or hires, and like, so my whole job is relationships. So I think I wish I had been more structured around it at the beginning. What advice would you give to yourself?
Probably say enjoy it, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the advice I would give myself.
It's 25 years on, so it's probably a little bit cloudy now.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it just worked so hard and it was stressful and whatever else.
Yeah.
But in some ways, they're the really, really fun times, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's easy in retrospect because we crossed the chasm like you did and got through to the other side. But also we sort of spoke about how difficult it is in those days, right? But it's like you had a co-founder, you're building something together, with someone who probably really complements you. You're taking a lot of risk and so forth. Like, if you really step back, actually, it's probably one of the most fun times of your life.
Oh, it has been, for sure. I guess, like, I had this investor tell me that there's two types of fun. There's type 1 fun is, it's fun when you're doing it, and it's fun when you look back. And type 2 fun is, it's terrible when you're doing it, but it's amazing when you look back. Yeah. I think startups are very much, type 2 fun. It's right. Like, you climbed Everest or whatever. I'm sure, like, at the time that was just like, holy shit, I'm freezing cold. But like, looking back, it's like, man, Everest. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm unique. You have been advised, and let's move on to.
Don't die wondering.
Don't die wondering. Yeah, that's good. That's an easy way to sum it up. We'll move on to our last question. So, any advice on how to get a product to market? I have a product. There's a ton of interest in the academia side to research it and bring it to market. I've never done something like this, and I have no clue where to even start. The product is hypothetical, so not actually formulated yet, and it is not patented either. Any advice on this would be helpful. It's from OK Win.
Don't die wondering.
I guess it kind of works on almost everything. The podcast is going to go downhill after this. Fucking hell. Joel really loved that expression.
So, it would probably be helpful to know a little bit more because it's quite a broad and vague question, isn't it?
Yeah. How to start up.
Yeah. So, maybe I'll sort of flip it here. I do a bit of startup investing. Yeah. And I've got like these 5 criteria.
Really?
That I work through. And the reason is that when I started, I was probably a bit more scattergun and go with my gut and so forth. Yeah. Some of them worked and some of them didn't. And as time goes on, you've kind of got to build a bit of a framework. Criteria, filter opportunities.
Take it from gambling to investing.
Absolutely. And, I think that when it comes to startup investing as well, I can get really swayed probably by emotion, and the idea is to try and take some of the emotion out of it, right? Because you've got a filtering mechanism. One of the things is, the most important thing is, for me, is the founder.
Yeah.
Is it someone who will run through brick walls and, has all those things we talked about, the tenacity, and will they be resilient? Are they a good listener? Are they sort of coachable and open and all those things? I think that some people are technical founders, really good can be awesome technical founders. This person may not be. Or you've probably got to be good at selling, like a great sales founder, right? Yeah. Because in the early days, who else is going to sell it? The best person to sell it is the founder. So I'm always looking for like one of those two. But then I think the other one I get to is the problem they're solving, firstly, big enough? Sometimes you see quite niche sort of problems being solved, or two discrete things that can't really build any sizable company around it. And then the other one is, this might sound really obvious, Joel, but will people be willing to pay for it? Because I think that very often there are problems that get solved but there's no actual business behind it, right? Like, there's no sort of sustainable business model. So I guess I sort of flip that and try to ask the person to sort of understand all those things, because I'm looking at it from the eyes of an investor, and there's also a way to look at it as whether I should start this company or not. That's my first thought, but I'm sure there's a bunch more things.
I do have more thoughts on the question, but just to dive into that a bit more. So the three pillars I heard were founder, market, and will someone pay for it?
Yeah.
And you said the founder's the most important.
Yeah.
If you have such a strong founder, will you turn a blind eye? Like, will you ignore the fact that the market's not big enough, or the people won't pay for it?
So I'd really, really like to think that not.
Yeah.
But I think there can always be an exception.
Yeah.
Because I think a really exceptional founder, sometimes they end up just making it work, or some of the really great businesses started one way and they pivoted, right? So yeah, I would be open to making an exception.
Yeah, because
I try hard not to.
I used to think it was all about the founder.
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably from a place of ego, to be honest.
Yeah.
But over time,
because we're founders,
exactly.
So we're just reflecting it back.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm special. So I used to think it was all about the founder, but over time I started to think the framework I think about it is like, for a business to become like wildly successful, so the unicorns, for example, I used to think that like nothing else mattered except you needed that top 0.0001% founder. But I started to think, actually, you probably need a good enough founder. So the founder still needs to be very good, right? But maybe in the top 5% of founders. But then you need a problem that is so painful that someone's willing to pay for it again and again and again, right? And you need a market that's growing. So you need a tailwind and support, because you could have an exceptional founder who's got a problem that's super painful, but in an industry that's dying, like print newspaper, they're probably not going to be worth $1 billion. Like, or if they are, it's a super hard journey. So
it's interesting. So you think it's really important that the industry has to be growing? Because I think if it's declining, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Some markets are probably not growing particularly fast, right? Could be areas of, I don't know, it could be retail and so forth, but you could still launch maybe an incredible product. So yeah, no, it's a good thing.
Well, I guess industry, not necessarily that the industry has to be going, but there needs to be a tailwind in your favor, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, if we look at Zamberos, I think they came at a time where the Australians were looking for more interesting foods.
Yeah.
Like, they were, like, socially, they're like, oh,
the category's growing, yeah.
Mexican food's super interesting, that was taken over, because before that there wasn't anything.
Guzman Gomez is the same.
Exactly, and Guzman's came at the perfect time and just went nuts. So I do think there's like tailwinds and advantage there. That's the way I think about it.
So there's a study that I saw a study that basically showed of all the companies on like the S&P 500 or whatever it was over a prolonged period. Yeah. they looked at all the criteria of what was the most successful. Was it the management team? Was it strategy? Was it, that they did M&A, so there were synergies? And the number one thing that trumped everything was that they were in growing categories. The companies that were in the growing categories, who effectively had the tailwinds. It's just, it actually seems so obvious when you hear it, right? But that's the number one thing. That's really interesting. I might add that, so I don't have a sixth criteria.
I like that. That's just the way I think about it, and because it makes me think as a founder, right? Well, like, if I want to achieve what I want to achieve, am I ticking those boxes? I am a founder, so I have the ego to think I'm in the top percentages to be. I tick that. Is my problem painful enough? I tick that, and then I think, like, is my market growing or not? Do I have tailwinds in my advantage? And if I don't, historically, I've been like, no, let's move it. Like, let's find the tailwinds, because otherwise we're fighting an uphill battle. So I also think that's another thing. I've never done angel investing, but that's another thing I just think about when I'm speaking about the businesses, is like, is that founder looking for the industry and the tailwinds? Because just because you're here today doesn't mean you need to be there tomorrow.
Yeah. So what do we advise the founder?
Yeah, we've definitely gone a little bit off track here. So this person's talking about how to get it to market. I guess, answer all those questions first, and to work out if you want to do it, right? Are you willing to put the work in? Because it's going to be fucking hard, and it's going to take longer than you think. But the way I would always think about getting a new idea to market is to just break down the idea to the absolute most fundamental core assumptions of what's true. And so, whatever that product is, I just want to start as small as possible to start testing it out. So I give the examples of like how we started Vigo. So Vigo is right now, we're like an enterprise SaaS platform that brings a university support services in together. We sell big contracts, it's slow, it's got to be mega compliant, like it's mission critical software for universities, all this kind of stuff, right? That's not where we started. The very, very, very first version of Vigo was a physical printed poster that we put up at a university that said, can you help in these 8 subjects, with my phone number on the bottom? And then, 100 people text me. I was like, okay, one assumption, we can get people to help. Then the next assumption was, do people want help? So we just reprinted the poster and said, do you need help in these 8 subjects? Then another 100 people text me, and I'm connecting them, there's no way to make money. But that gave me...
This was quite a cost-effective way to research the market and effectively test your hypothesis, right? That's maybe a way to think about it. Is you need a hypothesis, and how do I test it?
Exactly. Yeah. So, we just kept doing that and going to the next level when we could validate our own ideas. Now, this is easy to connect the dots looking backwards, but like that's how I would do any other business in the future. And I think, don't just commit to the big idea at the beginning. Commit to taking the steps and validating it for yourself and getting that conviction yourself. So that's what I would do for OK Winners. I'll start as small as I can, take the steps, and then also just answer the questions that, do you think you can be that founder? Do you have the tenacity? Is your problem painful enough that people will pay for it? That's and you can test that right now by making a fake website that sells it. And then if someone goes to press buy, don't let them actually buy it, but let them enter their credit card details and then make it not work, and then measure that on a website.
That was Joel's advice, not mine.
I actually think that's great advice. like make a fake website that says, we are, companyaa.com, we sell whatever this is, right? And then drag Google traffic to it and see if people will go through it. Don't actually ever charge anyone, because that is fraudulent. But just see if people are interested in converting on your website. Anyways, there's ways to start small. Yeah. Anything missed there?
And probably, if you're not sure, you probably got maybe bring in someone. You need good advisors around you, right?
Yeah. Good point.
Is there other people that in your network who've started businesses before? Someone once said to me, brilliant piece of advice, everyone needs a bounce-off person. Now, you had one, right? Because you're a co-founder.
Yeah. We're constantly surrounded by people like that.
Yeah. But there's a lot of individual founders as well, right? So everyone needs a bounce-off person or bounce-off people.
Yeah.
Go and test it with people who have done this before, which is this really exciting but difficult thing, which is starting a company and building a product for the first time.
I love it. Well, okay, Win, you've been advised. And we're moving on to a brand new segment that Marc gave me an idea for before this. So, Marc, I made this card game.
Right.
I think I probably told the audience about it at this point, because it's pretty new. I have this card game. It's specifically for founders. I gave Marc this game beforehand, and I was just telling him about the game, and I was saying I have no idea how to sell physical goods or get it into stores. So and he said, why don't you just ask your guests? I was like, that's a good idea. I'm asking smart people. So, Mark, imagine this is your game. You've just had it. It's your baby. You've created the whole game from scratch, and you want to get it into all the stores around the country, or get into all the hands around the country. How would you get it out there?
Okay, so I think first of all we need to work out if we have product market fit.
Yeah.
And we probably go back to the thing you said before, which is
Yeah.
start small.
Yeah.
And there's this brilliant podcast that Brian Chesky
Yeah.
did with Airbnb, and it's before you can scale something, you have to do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say I'd take this to startup meetups and see how that goes. Could you use over time maybe the equivalent of influencers, like real sort of startup legends that could play it online and help to promote it and whatever else. I guess I've sort of got to the stage of continuing of working out how you take it to market, right? That's the next stage, is if you have product market fit, how you're going to take it to market. And if it works in Australia, maybe the huge opportunity here would be the biggest startup ecosystem in the world, which is to take it to US and maybe new geographies. And then are there extension products from this? Can you do other spin-off products and create a whole sort of, I don't know, brand and product business around startups and create like a movement around it, I suppose. That was off the top of my head. You've
actually given me a really good idea. So what I will do is that I do have a bunch of friends who run big startup communities in San Francisco. I'm going to send it to them and be like, give this to some of your people and give me advice, take it to the events and tell me what it's like. So test that in the most dense markets.
It's like if you have a fashion brand, right? Like you'd want incredible people who resonate with the brand, or to be wearing it and be seen. Maybe it's the equivalent of that.
We'll get Mark Zuckerberg to wear this.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, mate. I appreciate that. So that brings us to the last segment, which is plugs. So tell me, Mark, mate, what's going on? What would you like to plug?
So I'm going to plug something which is a book I read, which probably had more influence on me in my early days of running the company more than anything else. And I think that the job of running a startup, one of the most important aspects is to motivate people, right? Inspire people. If you can inspire people to do the very best work of their lives, your chances of success and the probability of you winning is going to be higher. Yeah. So, look, I read a book a few years in, which is by Daniel Pink, and it's called Drive, and it's about what truly motivates people. Now, traditionally, we might think you might think of it as like the carrot or the stick. It's like incentives or it's monetary. Well, that is an important part of the equation, but there's other elements that are more important, and they are effectively autonomy is really, really important. Like, people feel that they can be self-directed, which means you've got to give them some space to try things, and the other one is mastery. Is that you allow people to become really, really good at what they do. So you've got to give them support to build themselves up and improve their skills. And the last one is purpose, right? If you have a company that is truly on a mission and you get everyone behind that and people feel connected to that mission, then that if you get those three things right, you'll have an incredibly motivated team of people. So it's a book that really changed the way I thought about culture, leading people, and had a really big impact on me. And I think broadly I would say just there's so much good content out there. There's some incredible books about leading and starting a company. So become a student of leadership and business. But I think that if you can also become a student of people and what makes people tick, like become a student of psychology, then that can go a hell of a long way. Not just with your people, but dealing with customers and stakeholders, whatever else, right? Like, try to swim the tide with human behavior and not against it. Yeah.
I like that. Swim the tide with the human behavior is interesting, because I think about philosophy a lot and what makes people tick and think. And so I try and read about philosophy and psychology, because I think the only way to be successful is with a great group of people. Like I can't do everything myself in my company. So when I can get people who are truly motivated and aligned with what we're trying to do, it makes a difference. Well, I'm out of that book. I wrote it down. I'm going to read that book. So awesome, man. Well, on my side, as always, just shamelessly plugging the show. So like, download, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And as always, steal a phone, subscribe on their phone too. You can give it back afterwards and they'll have a great podcast there. But that's it. Thanks to everyone that writes in these questions as well. We love answering them. And that's it, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
Thanks, Joel. It was really fun.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Well, this has been another episode of the Do As I Said podcast. We'll see you all next week.